Picture this. You're sitting in your living room, completely relaxed. The relationship feels stable. You've moved past those intense early months where everything was unpredictable. The butterflies have settled. You think you've figured each other out. Life is comfortable. Then suddenly, out of nowhere, everything shifts. It's like someone flipped a switch in her brain. The woman who used to laugh at your jokes now rolls her eyes. Small decisions become major battles. You find yourself walking on eggshells in your own home. You're standing there confused, asking yourself what went wrong. But here's something that might shock you. This isn't random. This isn't a coincidence. This is something that happens in virtually every long-term relationship. And most men have no idea it's coming. What I'm about to share will completely change how you understand relationships. Because there's a pattern here that runs deeper than conscious thought. It's wired into human psychology. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. The truth is, women test men. Not the playful tests from early dating. I'm talking about something much more fundamental. Something that will determine whether your relationship thrives or slowly dies. And here's the part that throws most guys off. She doesn't plan this. There's no strategy meeting with her friends. It happens at a subconscious level, driven by instincts that go back thousands of years. So why does this happen after things get comfortable? Simple. In the beginning, you were a mystery. You had your own goals, your own social circle, your own identity. You were unpredictable. You were a challenge. But as months turn into years, something changes. You start putting the relationship first. You cancel plans to spend more time together. You ask for her input on decisions you used to make independently. This is when her subconscious starts asking questions. Is this man still the strong, independent person I fell for? Or has he become someone who needs my approval for everything? Her deeper mind begins evaluating whether you're still the valuable man she initially chose, or if you've transformed into someone who gave up his core identity. Think about how relationships work in nature. For millions of years, survival depended on choosing the right partner. Weak partners meant danger. Strong partners meant security. Even though we live in modern times, these ancient programs are still running in the background. Her subconscious is constantly evaluating strength versus weakness, independence versus neediness. There's no middle ground in this evaluation system. You're either seen as strong or weak, reliable or unreliable, someone who leads his own life, or someone who follows others. Every interaction becomes data that gets filed into one of these categories. The strong man has clear boundaries. He makes decisions without constantly seeking approval. He doesn't panic during emotional conflicts. He's not terrified of being alone because his happiness doesn't depend entirely on the relationship. When challenges arise, standing firm feels natural to him. The other type operates completely differently. He lives for her approval. He's terrified of conflict. He'd rather give up his principles than deal with her displeasure. He confuses love with constantly giving in. He thinks his job is to make her happy at all costs. But every time he compromises his core values, he's actually sending a signal that he's not the rock she initially thought he was. I once knew someone who went through exactly this transformation. Early in his marriage, he maintained his interests. He went to the gym regularly, had poker nights with friends, worked on personal projects. When his wife complained occasionally, he'd just smile and explain that these activities kept him sharp and focused. She accepted this. But gradually, the complaints became guilt trips. She'd say things like he cared more about poker than their marriage. Instead of maintaining his position, he started giving in. Poker nights became monthly, then stopped completely. Gym sessions went from 4 times a week to 0. 2 years later, he'd gained significant weight, hadn't seen his friends in months, and noticed his wife treating him with obvious disrespect. Not because of the weight gain, but because he'd failed test after test by abandoning who he was. Here's what most men don't understand. The more dependent you become on her, the weaker you appear to her subconscious. I know this contradicts everything you see in romantic movies, but think about when you first got together. Were you constantly texting her? Were you canceling your plans just to be available? No. You had your own life. You had options. You would have been fine with or without her. That independence was attractive. Now imagine if the thought of her leaving makes you panic. If her mood determines your mood. If her approval has become like oxygen to you. You call this love, but her subconscious calls it weakness. And she can sense this from a mile away. When her deeper mind detects this shift, something activates. I call it verification mode. She starts creating friction, starting arguments over seemingly nothing, questioning your decisions. It's not conscious malice. It's her biology asking one crucial question. Is he really this weak, or am I mistaken? The tests usually start small. She might question a simple decision you made. She might start an argument about how you loaded the dishwasher. She might go cold and distant to see if you panic and chase after her. She might push against a boundary you set just to see if it's actually solid. Throughout all of this, she's watching your response. She doesn't care who's technically right in these situations. She cares about who holds their center. Will you break under pressure or remain calm? Will you get sucked into her emotional storm or maintain your equilibrium? Most men fail right here because they don't even recognize what's happening. She creates emotional chaos, and you respond with logic and explanations. You think if you can just make her understand your perspective, she'll calm down. But you're making a fundamental error. You're trying to solve an emotional test with rational tools. The argument isn't the real issue. The argument is just the arena where the test takes place. The real question is whether you'll stay centered in yourself or allow her emotional state to completely destabilize you. The moment you step into her emotional field and start operating by her rules, you've automatically failed. This creates a destructive cycle. She provokes, you give in to keep peace, she loses respect and pulls away, you panic and chase, you apologize and promise to do better, she returns temporarily, but the test continues because she needs to see how far she can push. Each cycle makes you weaker and more desperate. I watched this happen to a successful businessman. At work, he was confident and decisive. Everyone respected him, but at home, his wife would start massive fights, threaten to leave, pack suitcases. Every time he'd break down, beg, buy expensive gifts. She'd come back and things would be good for a few weeks. Then the cycle would repeat. 3 years later, he was taking anxiety medication. He was afraid to choose a restaurant without her approval. This man who commanded boardrooms was tiptoeing through his own house. And you know what happened? She left him anyway. She left him for someone from her gym who made a fraction of his income, but had something he'd sacrificed: his backbone, his core strength. Let me show you the most common ways men fail these tests. First, they respond with pure logic. She creates an emotional situation, and you respond with facts and reasoning. You fail because the test isn't about logic. Second, they respond with fear. Fear of her anger, fear of being alone. So you immediately apologize even when you've done nothing wrong. Every time you do this, you signal weakness. Third, they try to appease her by becoming a servant, smothering her with gifts, compliments, offers to do everything for her. But the more you chase, the needier you look. Fourth, some men try vulnerability based on therapy advice. You spill your deepest fears and insecurities. She says she's proud of your openness, but weeks later, she's attracted to someone else because you've proven you can't handle pressure. Fifth, they call in reinforcements trying to get her family or friends to talk sense into her, but this just broadcasts to everyone that you can't handle your own household. I had a client who tried everything: logic, pleading, therapy, relationship books. His wife would start nuclear-level arguments over nothing: how he parked the car, the sound of him chewing. He tried every technique from self-help materials. Nothing worked. She started openly flirting with others, staying out all night. He was heading toward a complete breakdown. Then something shifted in him. He stopped being afraid. Not angry, just indifferent to her drama. She started a fight. He said he wasn't interested in arguing, put on his running shoes, and went to the gym. She threatened to leave. He calmly replied that if she felt that's what she needed to do, he'd help her load the car. He wasn't bluffing. He genuinely released his desperate need for her approval. The most amazing thing happened. The tests stopped. She became affectionate and respectful again. She became the woman he'd originally met. Why? Because his internal state had completely changed. He no longer needed her validation to feel okay about himself. So what's the real solution? You must develop an unshakable backbone. You must have boundaries that are absolutely non-negotiable. This doesn't mean becoming a tyrant. It means you stop accepting disrespect. She starts drama, you don't get pulled in. Not with anger, but with complete boredom. You might say something like, "I'm not I